See now. Right. So we're back here again. I think this is part three of this discussion on why there are so few men in church, and we have Pastor Matthew Ebo from Birmingham, and we have Monty Ayoub. Is that right?
Yes, it
Yeah,
is.
Monty Ayoub from London. Is that correct? 'Cause I've just
That's
gathered that you're
correct.
from London. So it'd be great to hear from perspectives from men. Although last session we had two men giving their views as well. So it's great to have more men to talk about this issue. So without further ado, let me just sort of take you guys back a little bit. Pastor Sheila talked about how it's very historical that men aren't in the church at the moment because they, pre-war days, it was very pre-World War days in England, in the UK, in the West. It was very much male orientated or male dominated, but now it's actually very feminine, or it has been swaying that way simply because of the fact that in the war there wasn't many men on the ground. They were all out there to war. So the church had to reflect that. So I just want to pose this to you because that's quite interesting to me how society has changed things around. And we now have, or we are, sort of living in that particular, the change of era. We're living that out at the moment. So, Pastor Matthew, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, thank you so much. As you said, my name is Matthew Ebel from Birmingham. I'm a pastor of a local church belonging to part of Church of God of Prophecy here in the UK. Yes, thank you for that. It's interesting, actually, that women are taking most of the leads now, especially in the Christendom. But I mean, if you look back, if you take a step back in the days of Christ, all the disciples were male,
Yeah.
and he sent them out. The 70 that had it as well are male, and he sent them out two by two. You see, but it wasn't that there are no women following Christ. We know of Dorcas, we know of many names like that, and Ruth and all of them. But at the same time, the women have their role to play in the kingdom, in the Christendom, and men had to lead as
Okay.
Christ has given down, as Christ has stated and given an example. Men are to stand and lead,
Can I
and that
just
they should
can I
bring.
just say something here though, Pastor Matthew? Though
Yeah,
you're stating something that's very true, but let's bring it straight up to now, where
yeah,
I just said about the World War and how things have changed then, and now the church. You can can see
Yeah.
that there are a lot of men that are not
Yeah.
in the church. So,
Can I
Monty,
step
did you
in
want to
here?
say something? Sorry. Yeah.
Sure. Because I think sometimes these pastors are not looking at it very simple and very obvious. There's a lot of women now who are suffering from failed relationships with men, and their sanctuary is the church that's offering them something that the relationships can't offer them.
But do you
That's
think
why
it's
they
just
will.
that though? I mean, that's
No,
kind
well,
of
I'm
a
not
bit
saying
a
I'm
little
not.
bit biased there because that's
No, no,
saying
I'm
that
not
all
saying. I'm
women
saying
just go to
no,
church because something's wrong with their relationship.
no. But
You
look,
know
we're
what?
starting off. We're starting off with the generalization
No,
because we know
it's
some.
actually a research. This is research. It's not a generalization at all. This is research
But
that.
but that's what I'm saying. Yeah. Well, in terms of the research, okay, the research will generally come through a generalization of many factors, and probably will find that that is one of the main factors that men are men are not so emotionally pushed into religion
Right.
anymore.
Okay. When you say religion, I mean, Pastor Matthew, what's your thoughts on what's just been said? I mean, please do discuss
well, I mean,
what you just heard.
I do agree. I do agree that women are more emotional than men, definitely. And in fact, before we go ahead, I don't know if any of you or any of our listeners will have read the book written by David Morrow in 2005 about why men hate going to church. And this man, actually, we invited him from America to discuss this line with us some 3, 4, 5 years ago. And he gave an example. He gave two examples which resonated with me. That women are our women and girls. They do read frequently. They read more than men. And so when you set up in the church and there are a few men there, and during the teaching, you are asking men that don't read to read the scripture. And that is a barrier. And immediately, the next man that sits with a woman on the side of a woman, the woman read fluently and quickly get the scripture, and the man next to her is struggling. And so he's saying that we are really, really degrading men by asking them to do what they don't feel like doing and they don't like to do.
What do you say about that, Pastor Monty? Sorry, I've had
Well,
a lot of pastors on.
Well, I
Just
just
respond to
find
that. Just respond to that. Let me.
No, I think that is totally wrong, because I think they're throwing out absolute nonsense there. Men read a lot, things like that. They don't want to come to present day society and live with the present day issues at hand, and they're trying to justify in various ways in terms of the church. The church is the one that's losing out, and they're trying to reach out to something that's not there anymore.
So what you're saying basically, Monty, is that you disagree with what Pastor Matthews just said about that it's not just an issue of reading, that men, not able to read, that we're not, relating to them. And you're saying it's a lot deeper than that. What are you saying that it is then?
I mean, I just think that men are very disenfranchised with the whole church, the whole religion issue. And they don't find it that's more comforting when they are actually praying or reaching out, and they're not getting what the church is offering them. But they're not seeing the results.
Okay, but I need to come back to what Pastor Matthew said, and I'm going to let Pastor Matthew interject here, because the Bible clearly tells me, and it shows me, that it was founded by men. And the 12 disciples were all men, as much as women were, in the ministry as well. But what I'm trying to come across to say is that they didn't have a problem actually setting up the church. What is the issue now in 2015, in 21st century, of men, other than leadership? I'm not talking about leadership now. We're just talking about men coming to church. People that you see on the street that, you're Rastafarian, you've got the punks, you've got all different types of people who, identify themselves in different way. Why isn't the church able to reach out to these men? What is going on? Pastor Matthew.
Well, again, I looked at the previous recordings, and I quite agree with Pastor Sheila about that. That perspective today is with the Western world. When you go into Africa, into Indonesia, into Asia, you see thousands of men accepting the Lord and worshiping God. But when it comes to here in the West, we have so much of comfort, and they have this I have enough. No, God can help me, I can help myself kind of attitude has come into being, that people don't want to know God. The men especially, they don't want to accept God because they feel that they've achieved, I've arrived. I know what I'm doing. I don't need any other person. I don't need any supernatural power to help me. And that is the difference. That is the main difference about the Western world. There's too much of comfort.
Right.
And we're in our comfort zone.
So you're saying that independence is a barrier, basically. Monty, what do you say about that? Independence being a barrier? Well,
he's hit the nail on the head in many ways, right? But not in the angle that he's coming at it from. In terms of men in the West, they're saying that they have a lot of things already. They don't have a lot of things already. But people that are in Africa and so forth, they're still looking for some sort of salvation. So they will still be reaching out. They will soon realize what they're realizing in the West now. It's not giving them the salvation that they need. So it will start tailoring off once they've reached that level and that stage too. In England here, probably men have gone through.
I'm with you. So, okay. So what is the solution then? Because as far as I can see, statistically wise, now these statistics are quite old, and I think, as the church, we need to have more stats and research on this thing. But 60% of church members are made of women. Tear Fund research has showed that there's been a decline with men less interested in Christianity, and 18 to 24-year-olds from the Christian magazine are twice as likely to feel uncomfortable in church than other men. I mean, mean, right now there is an issue in terms of not having a representation for children then, or young people to look up to, even in the church. So what should be done to change these statistics? What are the practical things that the church should be doing then, Pastor Matthew?
I think we need to open up. We need to accept that there is this problem. We need to come to an agreement that if this problem is occurring and it's happened, and how do we tackle that? How do we hit it head on? And my suggestion to that, my first suggestion is that we should open up our churches, that we don't have only Sunday service.
Right.
Have other days of the week, evenings, that we open up to have people, to have men to come in. We have what we call men ministries in our churches.
Say that again, sorry, Pastor Matthew, because it went off then.
I say we have what we call men's ministries.
Right.
And next weekend, we're having a national and international summit in Staverton Park, which is in Daventry, where men and men only from age 12, boys age 12 to men of 100, if possible, come together that weekend to actually share and enjoy the freedom of men-only atmosphere. And I think that is something that we should do more. Open our doors in the week, not only on Sunday, where men can come in and feel free to discuss and open up and talk about issues that are affecting them. I think that will change things.
Okay, let's just take a little break here and then we'll come back in a second, because that's a very interesting point and I want Monty to actually come back and respond to that. So if you could just hold on for me, please, and then we can take it from there. So just please hold on there for me. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Right, then we're back after just a short little interlude there, and just picking up from what Pastor Matthew said. This is the Hear Me Talk show, by the way, those of you just literally coming in. This is the Hear Me Talk show, and we talk about different things that relate to Christian faith, but also to people in general, and how Christianity could be more realistic and more practical in people's everyday lives. So back to what Pastor Matthew was talking about in terms of activities, that there's a men's conference going on this coming weekend and to have things in during the days of the week. The thing that I wanted to ask Monty was, his response to that. And also, in respect of what you said, Pastor Matthew, I agree with you about something should be happening in the week. But I personally, this is a discussion I'd love to have, why the church is shut. I personally think it should be open 24 hours a day. People not homeless on a Sunday or a Wednesday. There's issues that are happening to people all the time. That's one thing I'd love to discuss. But the other thing is, how do men who are not Christians go to this event? Is it just for Christians? Because usually things are promoted just for Christians, and non-Christians haven't got a clue what's going on, and they don't know how they can engage. So as I leave that to mull over with Pastor Matthew, Monty, just respond to what you've just heard.
Well, I mean, I can hear from his point of view, because he's obviously trying to get more people into the church, more people into their ministry, and that is fine. But I think where the church is failing down, and a lot of people are getting disfranchised with the church now, is the church needs to start being honest. The church needs to start telling a bit of truth. The church needs to find a way of telling people what the actuality is.
What's the practical though then? What's all that going to look like though? You're saying honest and truth. What practical things should they be doing?
Well, when they talk about, in terms of, I don't want to deep into Christianity, okay, there are fundamental questions that people are asking every day that the churches don't want to answer.
Right, but what are the practical though, Monty? You haven't said to me what sorry, I'm very much an advocate here, and I'll dig. Yes. What is the practical though? Okay, we hear you, but you're not saying what is it that they should be doing? Should it be what? In terms of when they have their ministries, okay, if they're truthful, more people will go. But they're not truthful. So you're saying when they're having a ministry that they should talk?
In what sense? Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
In what sense?
The first question that everybody asks when they go to church is Jesus Christ white or black?
But
And
it's just, I mean, that's a different thing altogether. That's,
no,
we could
but
really
people,
go
no, no,
there, but that's not the issue
no, no,
right now.
but I'm saying those questions are putting people off going because a lot more people are finding out what the truth is, and the churches are not delivering that, so they're staying away from it.
Right. Okay. So you're saying that they're not delivering the truth. So
Yes, they're
what
not.
is the truth? If you say
Well,
that whatever you've heard or whatever, for you to state that says that you must have some element of what it is that the truth is then.
because Christianity, that's from where that's it, and a lot of people I talk to, is a European thing that's been brought over to Africa, and people are now sort of realizing that, and they're just staying away from it.
What's
And
your
that's
response to this, Pastor Matthew?
Well, if you follow the statistics, the Africans especially are now bringing Christianity into Europe. So that knock that argument right on the head. The Africans, the Asians are bringing back this Christianity that you are now purporting that, which was true, that the West took into Africa. Now the Africans are now bringing that back. So that actually has been defeated. But at the
that's
same
not been
time, though,
defeated.
sorry.
Go
It's
ahead.
not been defeated because you haven't, the same thing that I'm saying to you is they're not telling the truth. When they come back to the West, they're not telling the truth.
Yeah, but
Soon enough, the
okay.
Africans will realize that themselves.
Can I just bring it back to what we're talking about?
Yes,
We're
yes,
diverting here. Get back to where we're
absolutely.
going. And what I'm saying to you, Monty, is what are the practical? What is it that how to now? People do talk at and talk about, but they're not saying what it is that they want. So now, Monty, just state what it is that you want. Is it that what is it that's going to attract a man to come to church? What is it? You can either say you don't know, or you state a practical. But to go off on a tangent, we're not going to go there.
No, I don't think, well, the practical thing is, as I said, for the churches to be a lot more open and a lot more honest.
Right. That's
The
more.
practical.
That's
I
more of
really,
the how
sorry,
they.
When they're doing
what
this,
I wanted to,
Okay. Okay.
what,
Sorry. Say that again, Monty, and I'll let Matthew come in.
I said, when they're doing their preaching in terms of the Bible and
Yeah.
so forth, if they're a lot more open, a lot more honest, a lot more people will go.
Right.
But they're not being. People are finding that out.
Okay. So you're hinting basically
yes,
that you
yes,
don't believe that what's being preached in church is the truth, and that's what's of men avoiding coming to church.
Yes.
Right. So
okay,
Matthew, what's your response
right.
to that? Right.
Well, like I am a pastor, Monty. I want you to give me one example that I will go away from here tonight, and I will change from my being preaching the lie or not the truth. That I will take that and go tomorrow to my church and tell the truth or preach the truth. I really want you to give me one example, just one, from
You know,
if you've been told or if you heard something that is untruth that the pastors and ministers are preaching or talking or teaching about. Now give me an example that I will go away from here tonight and I will hold on to that and make a change.
Yeah. So
all
use
I'm
your
saying to you,
opportunity now.
they need to start actually saying where the Bible came from, what the actual truth is about the whole book, what the actual truth is about religion.
And that is
That's
gonna but seriously, is that really gonna draw every man? Because to know what's going on historically, it's personally, I'm thinking it's not going to drag my brothers in, because at the end of the day, that's not their present issue. Their present issue is they haven't either they got no job, circumstances are not right. History's not going to deal with that. So Matthew,
well,
that's my view. So Matthew,
yeah.
what's your view on that?
But history. You know what? When people know their history, they're better suited to deal with their present and their future. If
Okay,
they
but
don't know their history, they
oh,
wonder. But I mean, you're talking about what's going to drag people into churches
not
and so
drag.
forth.
No. We're not talking about drag.
When I
No,
say
I don't
drag,
think. I
get
don't
more
think
people going
people
into.
would want to be dragged.
When I say use the word drag, I mean have more people going into churches, or have more people, going to churches every week.
Right.
The churches don't deal with situations that people live with day to day in their real lives. They don't deal with it.
Matthew?
Yeah, this is why I said to you earlier on, my suggestion is to deal with their individual issues that affect them, the men's life. We need to open up our doors just more than once a week. And so people can come and discuss their personal issue, and there will be an answer, not just from the pastor, not just from the minister. Even those who will come into that kind of meetings will have a solution, or will have a suggestion, will have idea in order to help others. And that is my point. Open up those doors more than once a week.
Yes. Monty?
I mean, I do agree with that, but I think on a practical side as well, there are a lot of the conventional churches which look quite drab, and people find them daunting.
Right. So are you talking about just the look of them, or I mean, when you say looked quite drab, what are we talking about? The building?
I think the look of them seems quite drab and daunting.
So you're saying
they're not welcoming.
Okay, so you're saying if the church looks pretty, that men are going to come in now?
A little bit more welcoming. Yeah, I'm just telling you.
You really think so, Monty?
Pardon?
Do you really think that? That men, I mean, men are really going to come in because the church looks pretty. I mean, there are lovely churches in Handsworth, in certain areas in Birmingham, and trust me, it's still the same. Women rule in the sense of women outnumbering the men. So it can't be an image.
I don't know the churches in Birmingham, but I know the churches in London. I know the churches in South London. And a lot of them don't look that welcoming.
Well, have you ever been to Pastor Matthew Ashimalolo's church? He's one of the biggest churches in London. And I know he doesn't spare. I would suggest you have a look, because that may crush that, because he has
it
one.
Won't crush it. No,
it would, because he obviously spends and invests in his people, and in that respect, it would do you justice to have a look at other places other than just where you are, simply because that wouldn't really be the case with all churches. To be honest, it wouldn't be.
No, because I mean, you travel the length and breadth of London, and you look around all the small churches and churches in general, right? Church buildings in general.
Can I just say here? Sorry, can I just say here to Monty? What you need to do as an individual, you have a right to. The church is a public place, and you have the right to talk to the minister, find a time, book an appointment if possible, to talk to that minister or that pastor of that church that is not appealing, and so just make a suggestion. This is what this Christianity is all about. It is not just me going to heaven. I want to go to heaven and see you there, if possible. I want to go to heaven and see so many people there. So if there's something that is not appealing to you about a building, don't forget, it's just a building. We are the temple. You are the temple. I am the temple.
I understand that.
Therefore, if you have any concern about the display of our church, about the picture or whatever, have a talk, have a gentle talk with the minister and see if they'll make a change.
No, I'm just telling you what my fundamental reasons are, which they seem to be dismissing us, because I'm just saying to you quite clearly, yes, the buildings are not appealing, but generally the religion itself, and in terms of the preaching and so forth, they don't tell the actual truth.
Okay, right. Okay,
that's just my bottom line.
Okay, well, as I do on this show, I allow people to say their opinions, but they have to be ready for that to be challenged. And that's how it should always be. And it's challenging just so that the truth remains and nothing more than that. In terms of what you're saying, I mean, that's some area of discussion that needs to be done, because at the end of the day, that's something that I personally feel shouldn't be a barrier in this era, what we're in now. And we're in an era that has changed dramatically, and therefore the church, I believe, has a lot to say about what God, who Jesus is, and who he is to our lives and so forth, and that should be the only thing that draws people to God, not any history or anything like that, because those things will fade and memories fade, but what will stand is what God says. And so we want to make sure that that the truth remains, and though people's opinions will come, and that's fine, and that's what I'm about, is giving people a chance to give their opinion, but they have to be willing for that to be challenged. So are you willing to come back on, Monty, and we can actually discuss this a bit more?
Absolutely.
Great. Matthew, would you be willing to do that as well?
I hope so. Yes, I hope so. But I'm going here tonight. I'm going from here tonight with a heavy heart, because I haven't seen the picture. I don't know the picture or the color of this, what this truth should look like.
Right. I think, Monty, what Matthew's trying to say is that he hasn't really heard what you really want to say. You know, what is the truth?
Because we don't
Before we
have
finish,
the
just
time
literally.
now. If we don't have the time now, you're quite willing to give him a number, and I'll call him and talk to him thereafter.
Yeah, I think that would be great. So would you be willing to do that, Pastor Matthew?
Oh, by all
Share
means.
the whatever number Monty gives. In fact, you know, in terms of, you will talk about that off air. But
Okay,
we can definitely do that. So thank you so much. Thank you both so much for being a part of this. And I'm sure it's going to stir in people's hearts to respond to this. So I would just, you know, be prepared to respond to what will come from this as well. So that'd be great. Absolutely great. Thank you so much, Monty, Pastor Matthew.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
we'll be back
Thank you.
again.
Have a good evening.
Yes, just hold the line.